So guys, back again with part 4 of my look at the new Astra Militarum Codex. So far I've been through orders, your HQs, the base rules you have to learn for playing Imperial Guard. Now we look at the troops. So that's your two compulsories looked at. The next area I was wanting to have a look at was the elite choices. From now on, this is getting into the interesting stuff. Though the core of a guard army is all based around your infantry, your elites, your fast attacks, and your heavy supports are where the interesting stuff happens. So, first off, for the elites, you've got your Ogrons. They are 130 points for 3 guys, so 40 points a guy and 50 points for the sergeant. You can buy up to 7 additional Ogrons at 40 points a man, so that's 410 points for 10 of them. And for the transport, you can either take the Chimera or the Torox. But the thing you have to remember is they are very bulky, so that means they take up 3 spaces in transport. So a Chimera can carry 4 of them, and a Torox can only carry the minimum of 3. Which, I think if you did take them, you wouldn't take them in the transport. On a basic stat line, they have got toughness 5 and 3 wounds, which is good, but they've only got a 5 up save. The Ogrons themselves, they're a really nice unit to have. They're one of the few units in the Guard Codex which is a dedicated assault unit. Though they have the Ripper guns, which is a Ripper. Assault 3, Strength 5, like rapid fire shotgun. The ballistic skill 3, so on that, it's good. It can be used against light vehicles, good against infantry in general. But in combat, you've got Hammer of Wrath, so you're hitting them with a base strength 5 attack. So however many you've got, so you've got a unit of 5. You've got your 5 strength 5 attacks off the mark. They're coming in with 3 attacks basic, 4 on the charge, and 5 for a sergeant. So they've got a decent number of attacks at weapon skill 4. It's one of those units which I'd love to see more use of, but there's other options in the elite section and the codex in general you'd want to take first. So if you've got the points, Ogrons, I like them. I ran a unit of 4 back in the last codex, and I think I might try them out again this one to see how they go. Right, next on the list is Bulgrons. This is with the new box set coming out, this is the alternate version of building the Ogrons. You've now got Bulgrons. These are dedicated combat units. They come out with, again, 145 points for 3 basic guys, one of them which is the sergeant, and you can buy an additional 7 Bulgrons, so the same again, so you can have a max unit of 10 for 45 points a man. They come basic with a Slab Shield and Grenadier Gauntlet. The Grenadier Gauntlet is a Strength 4, AP6, small blast, 6-inch range grenade launcher. It's literally just, with it being an assault weapon, you literally pop out a couple of these blasts before you charge. I think the idea was for them. The shame is, it being a BS3, there is a high likely chance you might scatter, and you wouldn't want them to scatter back onto their own unit. But again, the interesting rule is the Slab Shield they come with, which I believe it's similar to the Dark Angel's Deathwing. Slab Shield. It's similar to the Deathwing Knights for Dark Angels, where if a model with a Slab Shield is in base contact with any other model with a Slab Shield in the same unit, it adds a +1 to its armor save. They've got a 4-up armor save basic for carapace armor, so it's upping them to a 3-up if you're keeping them base contact. But being bunched up does mean that if you had say a unit of 5 or a unit of 6, if you had 2 boxes of them and deployed them in a full straight line as a single block, they'd all have a 3-up save and be toughness 5, which would be nice. But the thing that makes it interesting, furthermore, if a target, friend or foe, is partially obscured from the firer's view by at least one model with a slab shield, that unit benefits from +1 to its cover save. So the way I was looking at it was you ran 5 or 6 of them in a long line. You sat them directly in front of your tanks. If I've understood it right, like in between, if you can get 2 rows of an Aegis, so they get the 4-up cover. You've then got the Ogrins in the way, and then your battle tanks firing over all of them. And if I've understood it right, you get a 4-up basic cover save for your Aegis, +1 for your Ogrins slab shields, so that's pushing them up to a 3+. And if the tanks themselves have got camo netting, you can push it to a 2-up cover save. But it's one of those things where you're having to buy an Aegis defense line and a reasonable sized unit of Bulgrins to form your cover. So it is an option. It's one trick I've seen. Another one is you send them marching across the board in the line. All your guardsmen behind have the bonus for if they're behind an Aegis or in a fortification on battlements or something, and they're shooting, being shot at, and the Ogrins are between them, you're getting bonus to cover save, and you use them like a suicide wall. Another idea would be advancing behind them. So if you wanted to do, let's say, a big blob of guardsmen with 6 of these in front, again in the wall, you get a 5-up cover for shooting through targets. So if they're wanting to shoot at the blob squad marching up behind them, they're going with a 4-up cover save as they walk across the board, and they themselves are reasonably resilient with having if you block them together, you get you 3-up armor save, they're toughness 5, they've got 3 wounds apiece. You'd have to have something, someone would have to be firing something dedicated to taking them out to get them, because being toughness 5, the only thing that can instant death you is strength 10, so, and force weapons in combat. So that's how I think, out of the 2 options, they are the ones I think I'd go with, because the slab shields can be used for this different. Generally, the new Codex doesn't have a lot of synergy. All the stuff works reasonably well on its own, and everything's reasonably good at what it does. This is where you start to see your synergy, where the Bulgrins themselves, I think, have got. If you advanced them, let's say you've got a wall of 6 with your Chimeras behind, walking up, and your Chimeras all pop smoke and get your 5-up cover, +1 for your camo net and +1 for your shields. That could be really effective. I'd use them as spearheading an advance rather than defensively. The whole idea with layering an Aegis, then the tanks and stuff would work, but you wouldn't be getting the most out of the points because they are a quite expensive unit. So you take a unit of, even if you just take the basic unit of 3, 145 points, that's nearly 3 squads of basic guardsmen for a platoon. So I think you'd have to be using them proactively to get the best out of them. One of the options to get is the ability to take a power maul and a brute shield. The brute shield gives them a 5-up invulnerable save, which isn't too bad. Toughness 5 with then a 5-up invul is making them a lot more resilient. It's one of the few units which benefits from the carapace armor, because a 4-up save, generally being toughness 5, you're going to be harder to wound, and then a 5-up invul in combat, let's say you're going to get stuff up with power weapons. It is pretty strong. Space Marines are struggling at that point. Ow. And you get a power maul with it for 15 points. So a 5-up invul, and you're now boosting them in combat to strength 7, AP 4. That's scary. That's starting to be able to pull tanks and walkers, and I think monstrous creatures would start to worry at that point. Say you had a big unit of, say, 8 and 9 of these running in, all beating on a monstrous creature, all coming in with 4 attacks each, and your strength 5 impact hits. They are starting to be terrifying, but the sad thing is they are so expensive. Coming in at 45 points a model, you're worth just, I think, equal points to a Terminator in general. Though they are probably just as resilient, it probably takes the same number of shots to put up 1 Ogryn down as it does to take 1 Terminator. It's something I want to test them out. I'm interested in running them with the brute shields and the power mauls, and use them as stick two minimal 3-man squads on each flank and just run up the board. If they get killed and shot, it's 290 points, so it is at the same price as a tank. But as they advance up the board, if they get into combat, let's say they start hitting the softer units on your opponent's flanks, they can easily deal with squads, say combat squads, scouts, orc, heavy weapon teams like the looters and stuff. Once they get into combat, they would be starting to deal with stuff. It's just getting them there, which is a shame because your transports aren't great. Unless, of course, you go to escalation and take a Stormlord, where you'd get the full squad of 10 inside, because it's got a 60 model capacity, I think, the Stormlord. So that could be a way of doing it, but then again, that is a very expensive tank for running across the board just to get 10 Ogrins in. So, right then, next up on the list is the Ratlings. I really like the Ratling unit. Fluff-wise, character-wise, and unit-wise, they are good. You pay 10 points a man for a BS4 sniper rifle with stealth, so I can't see a downside. They come at minimum squad of 3, with, as I said, 10 points a man, so 30 points basic, and you can take up to an additional 7, so you can have a 10-man squad for 100 points. With BS4 sniper rifles and the 3-up cover save. They do struggle with their only having toughness 2, but if they're at the back of the board, say on the roof of a bastion or hiding in your Aegis defense line, you are going to start getting some use out of them at that point. Because if the enemy isn't firing at them, they're firing out these sniper round shots, which are pretty accurate, and you can start picking out sergeants and stuff to be taken out. And if they are firing at your Ratlings, they're not firing at something else. That's the way I'm looking at it. If they're not being shot at, they'll be making themselves useful. If they are being shot at, they're distracting the enemy from something else, which could be guardsmen moving up on objective, and a tank that's just rolling into position, something like that. So I really like them. I'm thinking of getting a 10-man squad just to have as, I wouldn't say a throwaway unit, because you wouldn't be like, oh, I'll put it in danger and get it killed. Stick it somewhere safe and leave them to it, and just let them keep picking off target, aiming for targets that they're going to be useful against. So maybe pinning combat units, sniping for heavy weapons. They are good. I wouldn't use the infiltrate because I think the sniper rifle's 36-inch range, so you don't need to get closer unless you're playing the game where you're fighting lengthways on a board. But then again, you're still up to still only 24-inch no man's line, so you're still going to be able to hold the. You're still going to be covering the gap between the deployments. So yeah, I like Ratlings. The new rule they have got is shoot, sharp, and scarp it. This is very similar to Battle Focus. It isn't quite the same because Battle Focus you can choose to either shoot and then run, or run then shoot. For these, you make your shooting attack and then you run. I'd say that's the way to be doing it. If you, let's say, you wanted to move them at let's say they need to move to keep them in line of sight. Never move them. Only use the run move afterwards. You make your shooting attack and then you run along. Let's say you've got your defense line and there's buildings either side, and they're sitting in a corner and they're firing across, and whatever's dead, and they're having to keep moving around to keep getting better shots. Only ever use the run move because you're still benefiting from your BS4. So it's a new trick. I don't know how much you'd use it, but it is a benefit. And again, I really like the Ratlings. I want to run the unit of them if I can work them into my list. Next unit up is the Wide Vein Psychers, which were the Psyker Battle Squad. These have changed. They used to run where they had one of them. It was 9. You could have up to 9 Psychers, and one of them was the. It was a sergeant basically who went with them, and they a Brotherhood of Psychers. So it does the whole. You roll 1 power between the squad. They're if you take Perils of the Warp, it only affects, you pick a model, and it's just one model takes the hit, I think, off the top of my head. I can't remember quite how Brotherhood of Psychers works. They can generate powers from biomancy, divination, pyromancy, and telekinesis. I had the same problem with the old Codex. I don't think there's a need for them. God, don't. They've lost the ability to do. I think it was the Sap Whale and the Large Blast hit, which used to be quite effective. You stuck them in the Chimera. You only had to have one of them have line of sight, so he'd pop out of a hatch. You could either, the two powers they had before were, they could either reduce the leadership of an enemy unit by the number of Psychers. So 9-man unit, or if it had stuck with it, 10-man unit, you'd be reducing them to a leadership 2, which was great because you did that first, then shot at them with a unit, got them down to a 25% casualty check, and then made them run off. I don't know if they thought that was starting to get overpowered, but it was a power which, that was one of the reasons you'd take them. And the next one was the Blast, which again, it got more powerful and its AP got lower depending on how many Psychers you had. So if you had a full unit out of the Chimera, it'd be thrown out of strength 10 AP 1 Blast. Now, you've got access to divination, so if you really wanted to start, for 60 points, you could be starting running a cheap squad which hides amongst your infantry and start putting out your prescients and buffing the other buffs. You roll for it and just see if you get your other buffs and then pick from there. Biomancy, people have been joking it'd be quite funny if they got Iron Arm. I think, does that make them D3 extra strength and more attacks? That could be reasonably funny. But again, it isn't a competitive unit. If you're desperate for getting some more divination into your army, I'd say take a minimum squad of the 5 Psychers, which is 60 points. It's slightly more than the Primaris Psyche. But if you're running 3 Primaris Psychers, I don't think you need any more. So it's just depending if there's some special one of the powers they can generate which I've missed. Last up, I think for elites, is the Militarum Tempestus platoon. I really like this. It used to work. You had one squad of stormtroopers for an elite choice. Now you can run up to 3 in a command squad. The command squad's the first option in there. It has the equivalent of a basic office, platoon officer in there. It has voice of command, so what he can do is he can be issuing an order a turn, which is really nice. He could be giving you like first rank fire, second rank fire on your hotshot las guns now. You can give the squad the platoon banners, medipacks. Your Voxcast is, I think, a must. If you get the option, if you're going to be relying on orders, always get your Voxes in there, because that makes them more reliable. And isn't it? If you say one fails, you've got a chance to keep it going. Up to 4. The command squad is the officer and he's 4 guys. You can take up to 4 special weapons. So people have been saying maybe think about taking 4 hotshot lasguns. Sit them in your area, on your side of the board, and don't move them, and then you've got the salvo 4 strength 4 AP 3 shots, which is quite scary. It is a way to do it. So I think that's one of the ways I'd run them, and then have the officer throwing out his orders to nearby squads just to keep the firepower efficient. They can either take a Chimera or a Taurox Prime, which again, Chimeras, if you wanted to make them mobile, Chimera are always a good choice. I think I discussed it in Troop Choices. Chimera is my favourite choice at the moment, unless I'm missing something with the Tauroxes. The Taurox Prime is the better of the two. It is more points at 80 points basic and 100 points with the upgrades. It does have the BS4 and it does have the better weapon system, so the Taurox Prime might be a way to go. BS4 with the twin-link Gatling gun might be reasonably fierce. If you have 2 or 3 of them throwing out 20, 30 strength 4 shots a turn. It isn't as fierce as Punishers, but it's starting to be fierce with the BS4. It's reliable. It can be suppressing tactical squads. It can be whittling away at large blobs as they walk across the board, because I think it's got a reasonably strong range. Gatling cannon, 24 inches, so it's the same range as the Punisher. One line I'd love to see is someone playing 180 Orc Boys. On the other side, you have the guy with 9 Punishers and 2 or 3 of the Taurox Primes with the Gatlings, and just see which side wins, just out of interest. I think that'd be a good battle. The next option for the Tempestus platoon is the Tempestus Skiing squads, which is the basic Stormtrooper squads now. You have to take 1, and you can have up to 3 in the platoon, plus, and then you get and you've also got the option of taking the command squad as well. So the main squad is the basic Skians, which they've got cheaper. I think they were 16 points, they're now 12. You've got the Hotshot Las guns, the Sergeant's got a Hotshot Las pistol. You've got your Deep Strike, move through cover, which I think you had to pick between before. You could either Deep Strike or you took one of the special orders which gave you move through cover off the top of my head. Again, 12 points a man to upgrade for a 10-man squad, so 130 points isn't too bad for 10 of them. They're coming all with carapace armour, so they've got 4 up save, so reasonably decent. The Sergeant can take either a bolt pistol or a plasma pistol. I think I'd stick with the Hotshot Las pistol, just because it's AP3. If you wanted to spend 15 points to get a plasma pistol, it is there, but there's a chance of it blowing the guy up, so I'd prefer to stick with my Hotshot Las pistol, I think. Again, one member of the squad can get his Voxcaster, which, as I've said before, if you can, squeeze in Voxcasters for keeping your orders going. And then up to 2 can take special weapons, so grenade launchers, flamers, melter guns, plasma guns, and new Hotshot Las guns, which are specifically for Skians and the command squads. See if I can find the Hotshot volley gun. 24-inch range, strength 4, AP3, salvo 2-4. So if they're moving, they're firing 2 shots. If they're standing still, it's a 4 shot. With BS4 for Skians, that's quite interesting, because you could have, if you took a full platoon, 3 5-man squads of Skians and a 5-man command squad, 4 of them with the Hotshot Volley guns, and 2 in each squad, is that 10? 10 Hotshot Volley guns is quite intimidating for a Marine player. I think the versatility wise, it'd be easy to take a melter gun or a plasma gun, because you've got a chance against vehicles. If you're going to be using them as a dedicated bolstering the line against infantry, the volley guns, if you're going to have them dedicated for hunting a tank or going after heavy infantry, I think I'd go with the melters and plasmas, because you've got the chance to deep strike, so you could alpha strike for a big vehicle, let's say like Land Raiders or battle tanks and stuff on the enemy, the other side of the board. So they are really the utility, the Swiss Army knife for the guard. If there's a job you're struggling with, you get your Skians in, you arm them up for a specific role and send it after them. You are very similar to veterans, but are a little bit more specialised, because you can do your deep strike. You don't have to get your veterans across the board that way. You can just drop them in. I like them. I've always liked my Stormtroopers. I think it's a strong choice. And now you can take them in big blobs. I think is awesome. I really like the ability to take more of them now for a troop. Before, if you wanted to run, let's say 3 or 4, the 2 or 3 squads for your elites, you didn't have space for anything else. This gives you a chance to be getting your Ratlings in there, your Bulgrins if you wanted to try out the shenanigans with the cover saves. Still have a reasonably sized platoon of Stormtroopers in there. And with them being cheaper now, you can take more. Where before you may only really contemplate taking 1 squad, now you might be thinking, squeeze the points, lose some veterans, and take another squad of the Tempestus Skians in there. That's good choices. So that was the rundown for the elites. So as I said, Ogrins, I want them to be good, but I think you'd only really run them in a fluffy list. Bulgrins, I think there's going to be some shenanigans in there for the cover saves. I think they're a fierce combat unit when they're all tooled up with the power mauls and brute shields, but they are then looking at 60 points a man, which is very expensive. Ratlings, great if you can squeeze them in. Get a squad of 10 Ratlings in there. They're decent snipers and they're really cheap. Wave Vein Psychers. The only use I can think for them is getting more divination in there, but that's only if you're desperate for more. If your 3 Primaris Psychers isn't doing it for you. And last up is your Tempestus platoon. More Stormtroopers. Strong choice. All of them. I think generally they've all taken slight changes to prices. They're all strong units. I think the ones I'm interested in is my Ratlings, the Bulgarins, and taking Stormtroopers, the Skians. I think that's the 3 best choices there. Right then, I'll be back again tomorrow with part 5, which will be the fast attacks. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.